Hi there. I'm glad to welcome you to my channel, World of Stories. I have a lot of interesting life stories that I want to share with you. Enjoy listening.
Brenda Griffin had been stirring her lukewarm tea with an elegant silver spoon for over a minute. From the outside, it might have seemed like the elderly lady was in a trance. And to some extent, that was true, as sad memories had taken hold of her consciousness. Barbara. You can't even imagine the heavy burden of loneliness. My nerves are on edge on this day, the mistress of the mansion said with tears in her voice. Though much of the scene was theatrics and exaggeration, drama and tragedy were an inseparable part of Brenda Griffin's life. Barbara Phillips, who had managed all affairs in the house for almost 30 years and now served as her companion, had learned this aspect of her character well. Though their friendship could only be described with a stretch, they were bound together like Siamese twins. Barbara Phillips observed her mistress, with a hymn of justice playing in her soul, furious melodies echoing her inner voice. You deserve it, you old witch, and I don't feel sorry for you. However, Barbara Phillips spoke entirely different words out loud, taking a deep breath. Brenda Griffin, my dear, it's time to calm down. Don't break your heart. You must come to terms with it. So many years have passed. In a burst of emotions, the hostess reached for the spoon again, but upon seeing the cup empty, she threw the innocent cutlery onto the beautifully painted Xel tray. Her companion quickly offered, would you like some more tea? Brenda Griffin made a regal gesture with her hand, yes, please, but heat it in a regular teapot. Electric appliances ruin the water. After such tea, I feel completely unwell. Barbara Phillips went to the kitchen, still hearing the ongoing monologue from the vast living room where her mistress pondered in a hushed voice, yes, so many years have passed, yet I still can't believe it. And that's understandable. Any mother in my place would act the same because the heart refuses to believe. Gordon. Where are you, my only son? This vivid monologue was clearly aimed at an audience, but Barbara Phillips had long grown accustomed to such outbursts from either her mistress or her friend in misery. The wave of malice resurfaced cruel words on this gray day. You received what you deserved, and now you will reap the poisonous harvest of the evil sown earlier. Unlike the mistress, Barbara Phillips spoke softly, so her words went unheard. Brenda Griffin had no inkling of her companion's true feelings towards her. She was so enamored with herself that she was absolutely convinced others felt the same way. When she offered the position of a friend to her estate manager a few years ago, she believed she was bringing happiness to the modest woman. Of course, Barbara Phillips could have declined the offer for many reasons, but she agreed. Perhaps it was done out of selfish motives because Brenda Griffin provided her with a generous monthly allowance. Or maybe the reason for her agreement was to witness the downfall of this unsinkable Titanic, as the recently deceased retired general called his wife. In fact, the estate, the city apartment, and other property all passed on to Brenda Griffin after her husband's death. The desolate widow, however, was not pleased with such inheritance, but when questioned by curious villagers, who were very interested in the fate of the mansion, Barbara Phillips always responded with restraint, how should I know what the mistress has planned? I haven't learned how to read other people's minds. The curious villagers, out of habit, always steered clear of the general's widow. Therefore, nobody dared to engage her in a heartfelt conversation, and blame Brenda Griffin's difficult character for that. Many remembered her unpleasant actions right after moving into the mansion with their husband. The government allocated the general a country house for his services, but it was his younger wife who managed everything. To celebrate their new home, he invited almost all the villagers for a grand celebration. But the feast did not sit well with his young wife. In the midst of the festivities, the woman turned off the music and began to shout at her husband in front of everyone, Jeffrey. What kind of riffraff have you gathered here? These people are yelling like lunatics, singing vulgar songs, and the child can hear all this. Jeffrey Griffin tried to reason with his wife, Brenda, we were singing songs from the war years. It's a great legacy of our fathers. Why did they seem inappropriate to you? Yes, Jeffrey, because the performers were tone deaf. Look at the company you've assembled. Couldn't you find a better crowd? Think about what your fellow officers will say when they find out you're drinking with carpenters and tractor drivers. It was a direct insult to the attendees. Offended villagers hurriedly dispersed to their homes. With her arms folded on her chest, Brenda Griffin watched the scene unfold, satisfied. She didn't hesitate to see off the departing guests with sarcastic good wishes. "Best of luck to all of you. Come again when you have time." It was all spoken with blatant mockery, causing the general to be ready to sink through the ground out of shame. One of the guests didn't lose his composure and joked with the affable hostess. "And you, Aunt Brenda, take care of yourself. Your name is remarkable, it perfectly matches your character," the guest quipped. Geoffrey Griffin remained silent in response to the guest's joke. What could he say in defense of his wife when the person had fully revealed her true nature? Geoffrey himself sometimes called his wife, sent from Brenda, in his heart, despite much water having flowed under the bridge since then. Barbara Phillips vividly remembered that humiliating housewarming party. She had been recruited into the staff just a few days before this significant event. Until then, she had no idea that Brenda Griffin would turn out to be such a difficult person, in the full sense of the word. The day after the ill-fated housewarming, the new house manager wanted to resign, but Geoffrey Griffin himself asked her to stay. His passion was fishing, and on the morning after the unsuccessful party, he went to the river with a simple fishing rod. Meanwhile, Barbara Phillips was tidying up the wing where she planned to stay with her son during her service with the general's family. When he noticed that Barbara was home, the host paused. "I heard that you are from the local area," he inquired. "Not quite. I'm from a neighboring village," she replied. "Your articulate speech, Barbara Phillips, indicates that you are an educated person. What made you agree to take on such, shall we say, an unprestigious job?" She chuckled, but bitterness and despair underlined her laughter. "You hit the nail on the head. I am a bibliographer by education, but such specialists are not needed today. Times are tough. And I have a child to feed and clothe. So, I was very glad to take this job." The man put his fishing rod aside and spoke thoughtfully. "Yes, for the sake of our children, we are willing to do anything. I want Gordon to become a military man too. All the officers in our family line come from the male side. But my wife is strictly against it. She says military professions are not prestigious today, and I don't understand. How can one reason like that? But it's useless to try and prove my wife's beliefs to her. She is like this unsinkable Titanic. Titanic only looked like that, and its history turned out to be tragic," Barbara Phillips said. Geoffrey Griffin looked surprised at Barbara Phillips and then exclaimed, "And you are absolutely right. It turns out I chose a completely unfortunate comparison for my wife," he said, picking up his fishing rod. "It was very nice to talk with you, and please, don't leave us. Brenda isn't always so sharp. In reality, she is a very sensitive person. Sometimes it's best not to pay attention to her outbursts. Over the years of our marriage, I've learned this art. Of course, I have no right to demand the same from you, but I sincerely ask you to stay." In this determined man's tone, there was so much sincerity and even pleading that Barbara changed her decision. She watched the owner, who walked briskly towards the river, and thought to herself, why do such good men end up with such insufferable wives? This Brenda Griffin is a real shrew. It would be interesting to see her in the company of other generals' wives. I wonder if she behaves just as rudely among her peers. The teapot whistled loudly, followed by Brenda Griffin's equally loud cry, "Barbara, my dear. Where have you gone? Left me alone. You wanted fresh tea, didn't you?" Barbara replied. "Oh, yes, I forgot. It slipped my mind. Everything is so unsettled in this life." Barbara Phillips, maneuvering awkwardly between the antique chests of drawers and cupboards, reached the center of the living room with a tray. "Here's freshly brewed tea. Maybe you should eat something substantial? You haven't had breakfast yet today." "Brenda. How can I think about food on a day like this? Even the thought of it is sacrilegious. Exactly 25 years ago, my Gordon disappeared." "Brenda Griffin, 24 years ago," Barbara interjected. "What? Exactly 24 years have passed since the day when the people from the military enlistment office came to you and Jeffrey Griffin and informed you of Gordon Griffin's disappearance. The hostess gave her companion a piercing look but restrained her anger. All the days have long become monotonous for me. So it's not surprising that I lose count. When Jeffrey Griffin was alive, everything was easier to bear. But when he was gone, I was left completely orphaned, she said, and sobs could be heard. Barbara Phillips realized that she would have to find persuasive words to console the grieving widow. As expected, every year on September 12th, everything unfolded according to the same scenario. So, she was mentally prepared to comfort the inconsolable widow until evening. However, Brenda Griffin pulled her hand away. No need to console me. I know very well, Barbara, what you're thinking right now. Brenda Griffin. And don't interrupt me. You think I deserve this suffering? That it's heavenly punishment for my sharp tongue and nasty deeds? Be quiet. Don't say anything right now. Let me speak because it's time for me, as Solomon said, to gather stones. Barbara Phillips froze, as she witnessed the hostess in such a state for the first time in many years. There was not a trace of artificiality in the words and behavior of this elderly but still attractive woman. In her eyes, there was so much pain and despair that her companion felt uneasy. Just a few minutes ago, she wished that burning coals would fall from the sky onto the hostess's head. For several seconds, both women fell silent, and only the antique clock in the vast living room counted the passing time. Brenda Griffin shivered in her chair. Like a metronome. When they remember the deceased, they always turn on the metronome, but I don't want to. I refuse to believe that Gordon is gone. My heart tells me he's alive, and I want to find him. You must help me. This statement was so unexpected that Barbara Phillips almost dropped the expensive tray. Barbara. Why are you standing there like a statue? I suppose the tea has gone cold again? Brenda Griffin had another remarkable trait: she easily transitioned from a formal tone to a friendly one. However, for the interlocutor, it was a familiar sign of the widow's mood. Barbara Phillips understood how to behave with her now. Brenda Griffin. If it's within my power, I'm ready to help you. If I had any doubts, I wouldn't have initiated this conversation today. Of course, you can help me, but indirectly. You're speaking so strangely today. Nothing strange, Barbara. You're Carter, where does he work? Right, in the authorities where they know everything about everyone. Well, we've already submitted a dozen requests, but we always receive the same response. I'm not talking about Gordon now. Let your Carter find out through his sources where I can find Eva. Brenda Griffin looked satisfied as she sipped her tea loudly. Barbara Phillips couldn't recover from her request. You want to find your daughter-in-law? What's wrong with that? It's a perfectly natural desire. After all, Eva was my son's lawful wife. Yes, I kicked her out with a newborn in her arms, and now I want to atone. Brenda Griffin burst into tears of despair again. Do you think I'm the worst person? Maybe so. But how many times have I cursed myself for that act? It just happened on that day. I was beside myself with grief, and then she showed up with that baby, smiling. Barbara Phillips also vividly remembered the day when her mother-in-law chased the poor girl out of the house. Before that, Brenda Griffin poured a bucket of dirt on the young mother's head. The bride had given birth a month earlier than the doctors had expected, and the baby didn't look premature at all. Brenda Griffin, in a frenzy, shouted, "This child is not my son's. Why do you claim that he's our grandson? Our son disappeared without a trace, and now you want to give us this baby? You won't get away with this. Go back to your Anchorage, or whatever that town is called, where you came from." Jeffrey Griffin tried to calm his wife, but he was not in the best state of mind after hearing about his son's death. He wanted to stand up for the bride, but it came out weakly. However, his wife spared no words in addressing the young woman. She rushed out onto the street and from the high porch of the mansion poured the last words on Eva. Eva was holding the baby in her arms, carrying a bag with her modest belongings, as she walked away from her husband's parents' home while enduring insults and accusations of sins she did not commit. Barbara Phillips looked at the hostess. I don't think Eva will forgive you. After all, you, in essence, shattered her entire life. And why did you suddenly remember her existence today? I know that there's no forgiveness for me. Do you not believe that for all these years, I've woken up in cold sweat in the middle of the night because Gordon's voice whispered to me, how could you do this to them? He's my son and your grandson. But my pride prevented me from organizing a search for Eva earlier. And then, just yesterday, right before this cursed date, someone told me again, so clearly, that I should find her. After all, I don't even know my grandson's name. His name is Jeffrey, named after his grandfather. The hostess froze in astonishment, and her unblinking gaze seemed to burn into Barbara Phillips' forehead. Barbara. How do you know these details? I accidentally heard it from Eva herself, but it was before you kicked them out. As for helping in the search, I can't make any promises. You understand that I can't order my son, especially since he lives far away from me. And besides, I'm not sure if Eva would want to see you. Brenda Griffin didn't respond. She turned her chair towards the window and sat that way for the whole day, watching the clouds drifting across the sky. Barbara Phillips peeked into the living room several times, but the hostess remained in the same unchanged position. Only when it started to get dark did Barbara finally approach. Brenda Griffin was asleep, holding a framed photograph in her hands. In the picture, Gordon and Eva were happily smiling. People sometimes don't think about why coincidences happen in life. Some believe that an unseen force in the heavens controls earthly life, and to add some romance to this process, the unknown director of the cosmic show ignites the stars. People look at these celestial sparks and make different wishes. Very rarely do these dreams take on real form. Eva, too, once believed blindly in the stars. Even now, after experiencing the bitterness of loss and betrayal, she still hoped that those heavenly beacons could grant miracles. On this September evening, she sat in front of the window, waiting for the dark sky to come alive with stars. Among a pile of unchecked notebooks on the desk lay an old photo in a simple frame. The woman gently caressed the glass, and 2 teardrops immediately fell. Hello, Gordon. How are you there? I know that you're alive, and we will definitely meet. It's just not the right time yet, but I'm ready to wait for eternity if necessary. Because I love only you. Having expressed herself, Eva Griffin wiped the glass again and carefully put the photo back in place. She didn't suspect that in a distant town under New York, the mother of her missing husband was also holding the exact same picture to her chest. Only that photo was framed in a more expensive frame. The woman told herself, just don't lose hope. It's time to get to work, or else I'll have to check my children's composition until morning. Eva Griffin didn't just love her job, she couldn't live without her school and her little students. She wasn't bothered by the fact that she had to impart knowledge to children in this fading provincial town. The rather modest living conditions meant nothing to her. It was no coincidence that her son often called her a brave Spartan. Jeffrey was proud of his mother, and he wasn't at all shocked that the kids sometimes made fun of him. When Eva learned about it, she was initially worried that it might create complexes in her son, but Jeffrey noticed the change in his mother's behavior and tried to reassure her. Mama. Don't worry about me so much. Everything will be fine. Yes, the guys often tell me that I'm a mama's boy, but I don't see anything humiliating in it. After all, we all living on this planet are our mother's children. Then Eva Griffin understood that her 13-year-old son had grown up. Only someone who has truly experienced life can philosophize so freely. Thinking about her son now, Eva smiled. And where is that wayward soul? He promised to call more often, but he hasn't kept his promise. And he's in the military. Eva Griffin pushed the stack of notebooks closer and opened the first one she found. Let's see what our Coleman wrote about the meaning of life. In every class, there is its ringleader. Kevin Coleman's pranks were always on the agenda at every school council meeting. And his mother was a frequent guest at the school's principal's office. But despite his mischievous nature, the boy wrote skillfully and loved books, which was not characteristic of modern youth. His essay as a troublemaker was concise in volume but rich in content. The phrase that struck Eva Griffin the most was, "The meaning of life is when you choose your own goal and move towards it." Weaklings give up halfway and then blame everyone but themselves. That's why I always follow the example of those who are ready for any difficulties. He was one of those who never deviated from their path. Despite some stylistic errors, Eva Griffin gave him an IA. Such a smart boy, but his behavior. She had read her students' essays before, and she felt like she was reading their inner thoughts, which made her feel uncomfortable. The teacher often caught herself thinking that children's essays were a very sensitive structure, especially for teenagers. Unfortunately, even very experienced educators sometimes unintentionally hurt vulnerable children's souls with their careless attitudes. She remembered how, during her internship, she was outraged by an ugly act of another teacher who read aloud a girl's essay about her inner dreams. Disregarding the rules of subordination, she called the old teacher a soul destroyer. Back then, she wasn't afraid to voice her opinion. You, older generation, endlessly criticize the youth, but you yourselves commit lowly acts. The children entrusted you with their innermost thoughts, their dreams, and you simply humiliated that girl in public. It's disgusting. Her older colleagues were amazed by the fiery speech of the newcomer, but only the math teacher stood up in her defense. She's right. We can't treat children as some shapeless substance. Each child is a unique individual who deserves respect. Eva cried for a long time afterwards, worrying about the unknown student who was humiliated by the old teacher in front of the whole class. She vowed never to follow such an example. That incident deeply touched her because she had also been the victim of adults' mistakes during her school years. Eva grew up in a family where everything was built on trust. Her mother worked as a cook in a sanatorium, and her father was a driver. Besides her, there were 2 more children in the family. Therefore, her parents had to work a lot to clothe and feed everyone, but they never complained about their fate. On the contrary, they enjoyed having a large family. Kurt Johnson was very proud of his children and used to say, "When we grow old with your mother, we'll babysit our grandchildren, create a commune. The girls will cook porridge, and the boys will catch fish and chop wood." The men teased him at work. "Your dreams are so primitive, Johnson. Nowadays, normal people dream of prosperity, traveling abroad, and you think so low. But those who stay grounded are more adaptable to life. I'm sure my children will grow up to be decent people." Her father was an old-fashioned man, so he believed in justice, but society was changing, and other norms were prevailing. The cult of money was seeping into all spheres of life, and even schools with their traditions couldn't resist the pressure of change. Now, influential parents could dictate their rules. Eva and her parents had to face such injustice in the last year of her schooling. In the capital, a youth forum was supposed to take place, and the school needed to send 3 delegates to the event. Since Eva was confidently heading for a gold medal, she was first on the list. Along with her, 2 other top students from the 9th grade were to go to New York. The girl started preparing diligently and, with the help of her class advisor, wrote a short report about the work conducted at their school. Just a few hours before departure, when the team was already assembled, she was summoned to the principal's office. In the office, besides the principal and 2 vice principals, there were other unfamiliar people. The principal, blushing and paling, said, "Eva, unfortunately, you are not going to the forum." Eva caught her breath, but she clenched her fists to avoid crying. "Why?" she asked. "Eva, please don't be offended, but we can't always delegate the same students from our institution. There are other children. Let them not reach for the stars, as it is fashionable to say now, but they are also worthy and represent our school, which is what our sponsors believe." The principal nodded toward a group of men in expensive suits, and they all smiled as if on command. Eva sensed something unpleasant in their smiles. Later in life, she would encounter those same smiles many times. But for a 16-year-old girl, the cancellation of her trip was a shock. She ran home in tears, telling her parents on the way, "I'm not going anywhere." The whole evening, she cried, burying her face in the pillow. When she recounted her visit to the principal's office, Kurt Johnson was outraged. "I won't let this go. I won't allow them to hurt my child's soul." Eva had never seen her father in such a state, but she still hadn't fully grasped everything that had happened. The next day, the head of the large family went in search of the truth. When he returned from the school, he looked defeated and immediately asked for a drink. "Mother, pour me 100 grams, otherwise, I can't guarantee myself." Serious matters were always discussed by parents without the children, but this time, her father called for Eva. Her mother tried to signal to him not to do it, but Kurt Johnson said, "Our children can't live in the cocoon of our care forever. It's better they get used to this life from the start. They need to know that connections and money rule everything in this world." The principal is, in essence, a good woman and a true professional. But she also has a family. As I understood, she was put under a lot of pressure, and she gave in. In his voice, there was desperation and a kind of hopeless resignation. He downed another shot. Before this, he had never allowed himself such a thing in front of the children. "Eva, forgive me. I couldn't protect you. These vampires in expensive suits directly told me to know my place and not stir up trouble. They say, 'Where are you, a fool, poking your pig snout?' Yes, times have changed. Now money rules everything. But don't worry, my daughter. We will have our time too." From childhood, Eva had learned to trust her father. They believed that for him, there were no difficulties, but that evening she realized that her childhood had ended, and her dad was just an ordinary person, not a wizard. She couldn't fall asleep for a long time and looked at the stars twinkling in the sky. In that naive girl's mind, she still didn't know that the most challenging trials were awaiting her ahead. After the incident with the cancelled trip, Eva categorically refused any public assignments. The defiant student was summoned to the carpet to be reprimanded, but she always calmly replied that there were other students in the school, and it wasn't just her responsibility. Moreover, she needed to prepare diligently for her college entrance exams since her parents couldn't afford tutors. The provocative behavior of the graduating student annoyed the teachers, but they couldn't do anything and soon dropped the situation. According to the plan, after receiving their diplomas, a large event was supposed to take place. For a whole year, Eva's parents saved money to buy a beautiful dress for their daughter for the graduation ceremony. It was decided to rent a banquet hall at the only decent restaurant in town for the celebration. When her father announced the amount they would have to spend for the farewell to school, Eva objected. "Dad, I don't want to be present at this parade of vanity. I'll get my diploma, and that's it." Her mother tearfully tried to persuade her. "Eva, my dear. Think about what people will say. They'll think we are stingy or poor. The graduation ceremony is an unshakable tradition." The girl hugged her mother. "Mom, I used to think the same way and dreamt of being the queen of the prom, but now I understand it's unnecessary. For me, the most important thing now is the fact of receiving my diploma and getting into college. And besides, I don't want you to spend money on completely unnecessary things. Better buy a new TV, the old one breaks down every other day." Her friends also discussed Eva's refusal to attend the graduation ceremony for a long time. Some believed that her decision was due to resentment over the cancelled trip. Others called the medalist a conceited snob. Of course, the incident where she was removed from the list of forum delegates on the last day became a kind of turning point. It helped the young girl see the world not through rose-colored glasses, but as it really is. That's why she bid farewell to school without much regret or remorse. Eva had long dreamed of becoming a teacher, although her father discouraged her. Why do you need that pedagogical university? Nowadays, young people are rushing to become lawyers or economists. You're good at math. You could go into programming or something like that. Teaching is a noble profession, but it's not in favor right now. Dad. That's precisely why I want to go to the pedagogical university. Do you think you alone can restore the prestige of this profession? And why not? Someone has to start the revival. Perhaps you're right. After all, the future of the country depends on teachers, just like doctors. So, I approve of your decision. In that year, the pedagogical university lacked students. That's why Eva was warmly welcomed and, moreover, the admissions committee was delighted that the medalist wanted to pursue philology. One lady enthusiastically noted, "How nice it is that there are young people nowadays who are interested in the great legacy of our language. Perhaps we will be able to return the title of the most reading country in the foreseeable future." Eva didn't get distracted by amusements or idle conversations with her classmates. She was fully immersed in her studies. However, her friends managed to convince her to participate in an unusual event. "Eva, be a friend. Help us out. It's not just a regular dance, it's a serious event. The organizers want to do something like a Christmas ball from the 19th century. Imagine what a fantasy it is." Eva was intrigued, but she noticed, "Okay, but the ball requires a specific dress code. We can't go in jeans, right?" "Eva, we've got it all figured out. They'll provide us with costumes at the movie studio. The event will be filmed for television, so everyone involved wants it to go smoothly. Imagine some incredible dresses, Eva. It will be something spectacular, and you simply have to participate in all of this." However, neither Eva nor her friends could have imagined in their wildest dreams what the main costume department of the country's leading movie studio really was. They were led through the labyrinth of corridors until they finally stood before a door with a sign saying, "Women's Costumes of the 19th Century." Behind that door, a whole world awaited, a world every girl dreamed of in her heart. Eva had never seen such beauty and luxury in one place. After several hours of fitting and adjustments to the outfits, the young ladies were ready to conquer hearts. One of the girls said, "Now we can focus on learning the dances." Eva was surprised. "You didn't warn me that we have to learn the dances too." "Oh, that's a surprise. You're already covered in dust from head to toe, it's time to shake it off. After all, this is not just any ball. There will be cadets in uniforms and mazurkas. Cadets are from a military academy, and we will have to learn classical ballroom dance to avoid embarrassment." The first master class took place within the walls of a military academy. The choreographer immediately got to work and loudly commanded, "Young people, we are short on time, so let's work productively. Right now, we'll pair up the ladies with their partners, and then we'll learn a few key elements. Since we don't have much time for the dance lesson, we'll focus on the basics." The dance teacher spent no more than 5 minutes to turn 2 groups of students into neat rows. Eva was paired with a tall blonde guy. The young man immediately introduced himself, saying, "Let's get to know each other. It'll be easier for us. I'm Gordon." "Eva." The young people didn't have a chance to shake hands as the dance teacher unexpectedly shouted right above their heads, "No chatting in formation. Let's stay focused and learn the movements and sequences. The entire country will be watching you, and I don't intend to embarrass myself in front of millions of our fellow citizens." For almost 3 days, with short breaks for sleep and food, the students from 2 educational institutions learned the waltz and lively gross fader. By evening, their feet were in pain. Eva laughed and shared her impressions with Gordon. "I feel like I've run a marathon." "You're right. Our preparation for the Christmas ball is like a dance marathon, but I don't regret participating in it," Gordon replied. "Why?" Eva asked. Gordon looked around and then whispered, "Because we met each other. I feel like you're not just a partner for ballroom dances, but a true comrade in arms." Eva found Gordon interesting as well. He shone with erudition and clever jokes. They had no shortage of topics to talk about. After 3 days of knowing each other, Eva felt like she had known this cheerful guy for a long time. When she told him about her feelings, he laughed and said, "I have the same feeling. It's not impossible, Eva, that we met in a past life. That's why in this life, we can't part ways." Eva didn't mind that proposal because she felt drawn to Gordon like a magnet. Within a few months, they couldn't spend a day without each other. The officer didn't wait long and one day simply proposed. "Eva, how do you feel about becoming my wife?" The girl didn't pretend to be a princess and immediately replied, "I feel positively about that." Gordon smiled contentedly. He adored Eva for not having the annoying pretentiousness that most girls did. "All right, then. Let's announce this news to our parents. Let's do it. But tell me, who will be surprised first? Your parents or mine? Eva asked. Gordon pretended to think it over dramatically, then happily exclaimed. We'll flip a coin. If it's heads, we'll go to your parents. Tails, we'll visit mine. The coin chose the groom's parents, and the couple didn't delay their visit. Brenda Griffin tried to portray virtue and busied herself, trying to please the guest. Son, why didn't you warn us that you would come with a friend? It's not a friend, Mom and Dad. Allow me to introduce my future wife, Eva. We submitted our application today. Gordon's parents started wailing and lamenting in all possible ways, and Jeffrey Griffin even disappeared for a moment to change into his ceremonial uniform. For such an occasion, I must be fully prepared. When Eva saw the general's epaulets, her head spun. She abruptly pulled Gordon's hand and whispered. That's not fair. Why didn't you tell me your father is a general? The young man replied in a whisper. Firstly, generals are just ordinary people like you and me. And secondly, my father is already retired, but he always wants to look his best as an example for me. Gordon, you have wonderful parents. Eva said. The evening flew by quickly, and Eva didn't feel awkward or tense even once. Brenda Griffin tactfully asked the girl about her family and education. She was pleasantly surprised to learn that Eva graduated from school with a gold medal and would receive her diploma in just a month. What a coincidence! Gordon is also soon heading to his duty station, Jeffrey Griffin emphasized with a satisfied look. I must point out, dear Brenda, that Gordon is not going alone but with his wife. For a young officer, the most important thing is to secure his rear right away. In my time, I missed this opportunity, and I earned the nickname Angry Colonel. I was a colonel at the time, but I had no wife. So I missed that chance by 2 decades. But better late than never. Brenda Griffin got sentimental and even playfully wagged her finger at the general. And you would have disappeared completely, my general, if not for me. Eva. You can't imagine what these boys are like, I mean, men. Even the general's epaulets don't make them serious. You see, my Jeffrey Griffin spent his youth until he was 40 as a vagabond. That's why I had to endure so much with him. I gave up my theater career for him, but I could have had a dazzling career. Brenda Griffin rolled her eyes beautifully, and the general laughed heartily. My wife tells everyone this story, but in reality, it was a bit different. Her theater went bankrupt, and there was no prospect of finding another job, and that's when I came along very conveniently. The girl agreed to become my wife. Eva was most amazed by how different Gordon's parents were in character. How did they get along? I sometimes wonder myself. Mom can be, how should I put it, a bit haughty at times. She often boasts about her position and doesn't even shy away from it. You wouldn't say that by looking at her. Although first impressions are not always accurate, your mother simply charmed me. I think she feels the same way about you. To be honest, I'm even surprised. Why? I'll tell you, just don't get jealous. My mom has been actively looking for a bride for me in recent months. 2 daughters of her friends and even former colleagues of my father were on the list. Couldn't they find a suitable candidate? No. They couldn't because I met you first, and honestly, I didn't expect my mother to welcome you so warmly. My mom is a bit peculiar, but today she just amazed me. However, Gordon didn't know his mother well. When he returned home, she was waiting for him in the living room. Mom. You're not asleep? What's got you so worked up? Can I sleep peacefully when my only son is getting married? You're not happy with my choice? I won't lie, I'm not happy. Eva is, of course, intelligent and a very pleasant girl, but she lacks pedigree. The young man got offended. Mom. At least, out of respect for me, choose your words more carefully. People are not cats or dogs to be chosen based on pedigree. Yes, my fiancé's parents are simple people, but that fact has absolutely no significance for me. Listen. An officer should not have a wife from commoners. What comforts me is that your Eva is well educated. After all, she's a teacher. Otherwise, your father and I wouldn't have approved of this marriage. Please, Brenda, don't speak on my behalf. Jeffrey Griffin, in his pajamas, walked noisily into the living room. And why are you arguing in the middle of the night? Isn't the day enough for conversations? I order everyone to sleep. Lights out. The man poured water from a pitcher and drank a full glass. Barbara Phillips must have oversalted the fish today. Maybe she's fallen in love, he said, if you're interested in my opinion. I believe that each person should decide their own life matters. Our son is old enough, an officer, and we shouldn't impose our opinions on him, let alone choose a wife for him. Although Brenda Griffin skillfully managed her general, there were moments when she knew it was better to keep quiet. This was one of those moments. Jeffrey Griffin turned off the lights in the living room, indicating that he wouldn't tolerate any disturbances in the house. My general has gotten all riled up. It's time for you and me to go to the barracks, son. Gordon kissed his mother on the cheek and went to his room. A month later, the whole village celebrated the wedding. It was summer, so the celebration took place outdoors. Eva's mother, together with Barbara Phillips and other village craftsmen, prepared so much food that the table was overflowing with abundance. To Gordon's surprise, Brenda Griffin also decided to join in the preparations. She put on a flirtatious apron and started making a dessert with fresh berries using her own recipe. She enjoyed the process so much that she kept repeating, "I never thought that cooking could be such an enjoyable activity." Barbara Phillips supported the hostess. "You'll like it even more when the guests start eating the delicacies you prepared. I'm sure they will praise you because the dessert turned out tender and delicious." "Thank you, Barbara. Now, after my son's wedding, I'll have a new hobby." But those plans were not meant to be. The newlyweds were separated for a whole month because both were taking their final exams. Everyone was waiting to see where Gordon would be sent for further service. Eva even began packing her things, but a month passed, then another, and there were no changes. However, there was one positive change: Eva was preparing to become a mother. For some reason, this news didn't make the mother-in-law happy. Brenda Griffin looked at her future daughter-in-law askance and muttered through her teeth, "Strange. They haven't even celebrated the wedding, and she's already pregnant." Eva tried not to dwell on her mother-in-law's mood, who increasingly began to look at her with icy eyes. Only once did she ask Gordon, "Your mother seems dissatisfied all the time. Maybe we should rent an apartment to avoid inconveniencing them?" "Eva, don't talk nonsense. In your condition, you need support, and your parents are far away." "Wait. What are you preparing me for? Aren't we going together to your duty station?" The man realized he had said too much and tried to rectify the situation. "Eva. I'm a military man, and I must be prepared for any turn of events. In short, I will go wherever I am ordered to serve, but for now, this question remains open." 2 days later, Gordon came home excited. "We're leaving in 2 hours. So we need to hurry with packing. Just for God's sake, don't put anything unnecessary, they'll throw everything out during the inspection." Eva froze in shock. An uneasy feeling stirred somewhere in her heart. "Gordon. What about me?" Gordon was hastily packing his essentials into a backpack. He lovingly embraced his young wife. "Why do you look so pale? Everything will be fine. We'll be part of a peacekeeping mission. So don't worry." Brenda Griffin was no less worried than her future daughter-in-law. "Son. Will you at least tell us where you'll be?" "Mom. You're a general's wife, and you know very well that such questions shouldn't be asked of military personnel." Yes, I know. I'm sorry, but I completely forgot about your father's status. At this moment, like hundreds of other mothers, I'm worried about my son." Within half an hour, the women packed the young officer for the journey. Gordon was in a hurry and refused to have lunch. He didn't allow the women to see him off. Eva would remember Gordon's smiling face and his farewell words, "Everything will be fine. I'll definitely come back." The black limousine arrogantly blinked its taillights and quickly disappeared around the corner leading to the federal highway. Barbara Phillips thoughtfully asked, "Why would they drive a young officer, yesterday's graduate of the academy, in a limousine? I've never seen anything like this before." Brenda Griffin proudly shook the curls on her head. "Barbara, you don't understand anything about military service. Don't forget that Gordon is the son of a general. As far as I know, the military doesn't care about lineage. That was true until yesterday, but today everything has changed. Isn't that right, Eva?" But the young woman continued to gaze into the dark distance where the black car had disappeared. "He'll come back. He promised me." Barbara Phillips became alarmed. "Brenda Griffin, I think there's something wrong with your daughter-in-law. Such agitation can be harmful during her pregnancy. God forbid it affects the baby." The kind housekeeper led the girl inside. "Come, dear. You shouldn't get upset." The mother-in-law wanted to accompany Barbara Phillips, but then changed her mind. She couldn't understand what worried her more, her son's fate or her daughter-in-law's. Of course, Eva herself was not the center of her attention, but she carried their grandchild. On the veranda, where her spouse was lost in thought, Jeffrey Griffin appeared. "Did Gordon leave?" "Yes, but you could have gone out to see him off. I don't like long farewells. That's why I deliberately didn't show up. It's tough for Gordon right now. It's his first time going into service, and it's like this." "Like what?" "Jeffrey. What do you mean? Tell me. Don't torture me. You know everything." "Brenda, don't shout. I know as much as you do. Don't forget that I've been retired for a long time. I only have a few guesses, but we have no other choice but to wait." Unrestrained Brenda Griffin started talking fervently. "Jeffrey, I'm prepared to wait for my son for months and years, as long as he's okay. But Eva? Will she stay with us all this time? I don't understand. Is it inconvenient for you to have your son's wife around? We simply must take care of her." Jeffrey Griffin's voice carried those notes that always scared Brenda Griffin. Therefore, she fell silent, but in her head, beneath her sweet curls, not so kind thoughts were present. "I'm not happy with this girl's company at all. Let her go to her relatives. No need for her to linger here." The next morning, while everyone in the house was still asleep, Brenda Griffin dialed the number of her daughter-in-law's parents, and the girl's father picked up the phone. The cunning mother-in-law added a touch of tragedy and tears to her voice. "Kurt Johnson, my dear. Gordon went on a business trip. The problem is that we don't know where, and poor Eva is suffering. Don't misunderstand me, but Jeffrey Griffin and I thought that in her condition, it would be best for her to be surrounded by her family." The girl's father listened carefully and promised. "You should have called us earlier. We'll come over by the weekend for sure." "Oh, Kurt Johnson. I'm sure it's inconvenient for you to come here by bus. Maybe I should send a car for you or order a taxi." "Brenda Griffin. You must have forgotten that we have our own transport. It's not new, but it runs well." Brenda Griffin hung up the phone and pondered the twists of fate for a long time, but after talking to the matchmaker, she calmed down. She'll go to her parents. She'll be much better there. Who knows? Maybe she'll even stay in her poor little town. She's not suitable for our Gordon. In most fairy tales, heroes find happiness in bundles. Fate, however, showed its generosity to Eva only in misfortune. Her happiness turned out to be short-lived. Evil fate decided to fill her life with hardships and deprivations, but Eva did not yet know what trials awaited her. Only a few days had passed since Gordon's departure, and the expectant mother had somewhat come to terms with the idea that she would have to live temporarily without her husband. On Saturday morning, there was a soft knock on her door. Then, her mother-in-law quietly sneaked in on tiptoes. "How are you feeling, my dear?" "Thank you. Brenda Griffin, everything is fine. I slept well last night." "Wonderful. I came to give you some good news." Eva immediately sat up on the bed. Is Gordon back? No, dear. He just left on a business trip. It's going to be at least 6 months. So, you'll have to be patient. But that's not it. Your parents are supposed to come today. We've arranged it with them. This news truly delighted Eva. In the rush of emotions, she even hugged her mother-in-law and gave her a kiss. Thank you. I've missed them so much, and home too. Brenda Griffin was in high spirits. She admired her own resourcefulness and thought to herself, I'm so clever. The Griffins will take their daughter back and let her stay there until the delivery, maybe even longer. But time passed, and the guests didn't show up. Eva called their number several times, but all she heard was a long dial tone. Then, she called her elder sister. Carolina, do you know where Mom and Dad are? We're waiting for them, but they're not coming. The sister screamed into the phone. You don't know yet? Eva. Mom and Dad. They were in a car accident. The phone fell from the girl's hand. At that moment, the worried Barbara Phillips appeared at the door. Quick, turn on the TV. It's terrible. Eva immediately recognized her father's car. The TV footage showed the aftermath of a terrible accident, and the once charming Chevrolet looked like a heap of twisted metal. Eva screamed. Mom. Dad. Barbara Phillips barely caught the unconscious young woman as she collapsed. Maybe we should call an ambulance? It's dangerous for her in her condition. After the terrible tragedy that deprived her of both her father and mother, Eva lived as if in a dream. She performed the necessary actions automatically but did so indifferently. Emotion seemed to have died inside her. For 2 months, she didn't even leave the house, and Barbara Phillips was very concerned about her condition. She decided to talk about Eva's future with Brenda. Brenda Griffin. I'm sorry, but I get the impression that you are completely indifferent to Eva's condition. You know, Barbara. You're right. But I don't understand why you care so much about my daughter-in-law. Do you have reasons for that? I don't understand. What are you insinuating? Just came up in conversation. By the way, I wanted to ask. Is your Carter acquainted with Eva? If I'm not mistaken, your son serves in the internal forces in the capital, and they might have met there. What strange questions you have. Unlike some people, I don't have a habit of meddling in the affairs of my adult son. Brenda Griffin pursed her lips but didn't reply. Another month and a half passed, and new tragedy struck the young woman. On a Sunday, people in civilian clothes arrived, but it was not difficult to guess that they were military. One man glanced at Eva's plump figure with her protruding belly and invited Brenda Griffin to talk. We need to talk to you. The woman already knew what this stern-looking man would say. She clenched her hands so tightly that her fingertips turned white. Is Gordon dead? The man averted his gaze. No, it's not certain yet. He disappeared. He was on patrol with 4 other people. 2 died, 1 is in critical condition in intensive care, and the survivor said they were attacked. It was an ambush. They're investigating various possibilities, but for now, nothing is known. We have to wait. Yes, we have to wait. Brenda Griffin stared fixedly ahead with unblinking eyes. In this state of shock, her future daughter-in-law found her after the men in black suits had left their estate. Eva had never seen her mother-in-law like this before. Brenda Griffin, what happened? Please, don't stay silent. Gordon. My Gordon is missing. The women cried, embracing each other. Then Barbara Phillips joined them, and later that night, Eva started having contractions. The baby was not due for another month, so everyone worried about the health of the future child. Barbara Phillips willingly shared her knowledge. 7-month-old babies survive better than 8-month-old ones, especially boys, but God willing, everything will be fine. Brenda Griffin remained silent. She only made 1 call to the maternity hospital, and after that, she seemed absent for a whole week. Barbara Phillips decided to take the initiative herself. Aren't you going to visit Eva? She probably needs things for the baby and for her discharge? If you're in such a hurry, you go. I won't. On the 5th day, Eva and her baby were discharged. However, her happy mother-in-law did not let her into the house. Brenda Griffin's eyes burned with hatred. This child is not my son's. I don't know, and I don't want to know, with whom you conceived him. And now you want to give him to us? Eva hugged her newborn to her chest. She couldn't believe her ears. Brenda Griffin. What are you saying? And she's still asking. I already found it strange that you got pregnant so quickly. You made this child with your lover and then decided to cover it up with my son. Otherwise, how do you explain that an 8-month-old baby was born weighing 3.800 grams? Almost 4 kilograms. Isn't that too much for a premature baby? Brenda Griffin. Your suspicions are groundless. Look at your grandson, he's a spitting image of Gordon. Eva offered Brenda a blue satin envelope, but her mother-in-law pushed her away roughly. Don't try to play the pity card. I'll never acknowledge this child. Go back to where you conceived him. Let them feed and care for you there. Barbara, gather her things, and in 5 minutes, there shouldn't be her or her degenerate here. Hoping to find support, Eva looked at Jeffrey Griffin, who silently watched the scene, but he averted his gaze. This gesture spoke volumes and showed that he fully supported his wife. Barbara Phillips took 2 suitcases with Eva's belongings and whispered softly. I'll take you away. The relative of the estate manager turned out to be surprisingly kind and charming. Barbara Phillips noted. Laura is a nurse, so the baby is in good hands. The women fussed around the newborn, but Eva couldn't get rid of the haunting image of her mother-in-law. She saw her distorted face full of malice and heard those hurtful words again, go back to where you conceived this child. The anxieties of the past months had completely exhausted the young woman. She noticed that she had gone numb. Barbara Phillips brought her back to reality with her voice. Eva. What will you name the little boy? A forced smile appeared on the pale face of the young woman. Jeffrey. Gordon said that if it's a boy, we'll name him after his grandfather. That's right. Let the Griffin lineage continue. Look at this little warrior, he's so strong. Eva approached the small couch where the robust newborn lay on a white terry towel. The baby was blowing bubbles and moving his little arms and legs actively. The young mother smiled through her tears. Jeffrey. My little boy. You're the best baby in the world. The little boy responded to her in his own language. It was the first dialogue between the mother and son, but it made Eva want to keep on living. For almost a month, Eva and her newborn son were under the care of the sisters. The young mother gradually returned to life, though her future still seemed like a blurry mirage. Barbara Phillips. Thank you so much, but I can't rely on your support forever. What are you thinking, Eva? Where will you go with a breastfeeding baby in your arms? I'll find a job. You'll have time to work. Let Jeffrey grow up a bit. You don't impose on us at all, and my Carter thinks that we're doing the right thing with Aunt Laura. Remember, girl, there are more good people in the world than bad. This truth was confirmed when Eva secretly started looking for a job without telling Barbara Phillips. Surprisingly, she quickly found an offer that suited her perfectly. A school in a provincial town near Grand Forks was in need of an English language and literature teacher. Without delay, she called and heard a joyful voice on the other end. Come over. We're in a critical situation. I have a breastfeeding baby. Don't worry. We'll provide you with accommodation and a nanny. Granted, the salary is meager, but it'll be enough for the time being. And we'll help you too. We have very kind and supportive people here. Barbara Phillips and her sister bid farewell to Eva as if she were their own family. Where are you rushing to? You should have stayed with us a bit longer. We've grown so attached to Jeffrey. Tears and well wishes were abundant, and when Eva boarded the departing train, Barbara Phillips asked her, Do you want to send any messages to your relatives? You know who I mean, right? I understand. No. I've crossed them out of my life forever, and I hope I never have to see them again. After the train disappeared in the distance, Barbara Phillips turned to her sister. You can expect anything from Brenda. But Jeffrey Griffin surprised me. He could have stood up for that poor girl, but God will judge them. And Jeffrey looks like his grandfather, but he turned out to be an unwanted grandson to them. Over 20 years had passed, and suddenly Brenda Griffin mentioned Eva. Had she not thought about her all these years? Frankly, Barbara Phillips didn't know how to react. Of course, Carter wouldn't refuse her if she asked for help. But was it what Eva needed? She was probably married by now. It's very likely that Jeffrey considers someone else his father, and suddenly, Queen Brenda Griffin appears. How will she behave? What will she say? Barbara Phillips was utterly bewildered. She decided to wait a little longer. God willing, the elderly woman will change her mind on her own. Eva Griffin felt exhausted and closed her journal. Well, what a day it turned out to be. Almost half the class started sniffing and sneezing during the last lesson. She had heard that there was some flu going around in town, but she didn't believe it would be so severe, and she didn't believe it when they said it manifests within 2 hours. And here it was happening right before her eyes. She had to call parents, take the sniffly group to see the doctor. Half of them already had a fever, and there was a line of children from other classes at the medical office. The principal was at a loss. One more day like this, and we'll have to close down due to quarantine. In the end, when she reached home, all she wanted to do was lie down and not move for at least half an hour. Her headache was quite unpleasant. Well, I definitely didn't need to get sick. Whether the words were prophetic, or the virus is too strong. But in the evening, Eva Griffin already called the principal with a hoarse voice, telling her she had a fever. Oh, Eva Griffin. What are we to do now? I understand it wasn't intentional. You're the third teacher who called me. Get well soon, and as soon as you feel better, rush back to work. Eva had just laid down on her pillow when the phone rang. Mom. Hi, Mommy. Oh, Jeffrey. I'm so glad to hear you. Mom, what's wrong with your voice? Don't mind it. Everything's fine. Just a little under the weather. Wow. She says everything is fine. Mom, we're coming tonight. Oh, Jeffrey. Mom, we don't need anything. I'm just passing through. Literally a 3-hour layover between flights. Eva's heart sank. Where are you going, my son? Mom, please, don't worry. Everything's fine. But how not to worry? Her heart felt like it was about to jump out of her chest. No matter how bad Eva felt, she got up and started preparing, ensuring her little son had a fresh meal and everything they needed to take with them. She took a couple of tablets and felt somewhat relieved. She had to get everything done. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the doorbell rang. At the doorstep stood Jeffrey. She rushed to him, hugged him, but then turned her face away. God forbid she infect Jeffrey, and only then did she notice he wasn't alone. Behind Jeffrey stood a girl, petite and slim. Although the girl's braid was thicker than Eva's arm. Mom, meet Marta. Marta is my wife. Eva almost fainted. Wife? Jeffrey laughed. Mom, you look as if we had kept the wedding secret from you. Not at all. We were planning to celebrate the wedding properly, but I have to leave. So we got married yesterday evening before my flight here. Oh, my God. Eva hesitated for a moment, then smiled. Being a soldier's wife is even more challenging than being a bride. Welcome to the family, Marta. The girl blushed and suddenly burst into tears. Eva looked at her son in fear. Jeffrey hugged his wife. Mom, she was just very nervous about how you'd receive her. I want Marta to stay here with you. She has finished her studies, but she has no relatives here. Eva Griffin immediately remembered herself. She recalled how she was shamefully driven away from home. No matter how much she tried, such memories never fade away, and after so many years, it hurt just as much as before. She embraced the girl. Marta. Nobody here will mistreat you. Come on in. I've prepared so much, and we still need to pack everything for Jeffrey. Mom. Why? Jeffrey looked surprised at his mother. Did you cook while being sick all night? Eva gave him a look that made him immediately embarrassed. Thank you, Mom. You know how much I love eating. They settled in the kitchen. Marta ate a little and then started falling asleep at the table. She then rested her head on Jeffrey's shoulder and dozed off. Mom, tell me. Do you know where they sent Dad back then? No, son. I don't know for sure, but you are a soldier. You should know that at that time, there was only one hot spot. Eva froze. What do you mean? Mom, come on. It's completely different times now, and I'm going there to maintain order. Everything will be fine. I won't leave you. You know, son. When your father left, he said, I will definitely come back. He never lied to me, and I don't have a feeling that he's no longer here. I'm sure he's somewhere, and I believe that something terrible must have happened to him, preventing him from coming back. Otherwise, he would have come back. Mom. So many years have passed. Let's suppose your intuition is wrong, and he is alive. You understand that he must have another family by now. A person cannot stay away for so many years if he really wants to come back. Jeffrey. You just don't know your father. You don't know how much we loved each other. Eva suddenly smiled. At least I didn't marry someone else, although I could have. Jeffrey looked at his mother for a while, then turned his gaze to Marta. I really hope that our love with Marta is no less than yours and Dad's. That's right, Jeffrey. Faith is the key. All right, Mom. I have to go. I wouldn't want you to come to the airport with me. Eva got up. What do you mean, go? You just arrived. It's been 3 hours, Mom. They watched as Jeffrey closed the door. In another situation, Eva would have cried, but now Marta was leaning on her shoulder, crying. Jeffrey was gone. This meant that Eva was responsible for this girl. Come on, Marta. You shouldn't worry like this. Everything is fine with Jeffrey, right? Marta lifted her face from Eva's robe. He'll come back, right? Everything will be fine, right? Eva Griffin nodded confidently. Of course. You heard him, he promised. And my son has always kept his word since childhood. Marta smiled. As the girl settled in over the next couple of days, during dinner, Eva started asking her questions about her background and other similar things. I was born in a small town 100 kilometers from New York. My mom worked as a librarian, and my dad used to drive people on buses between villages. We were never rich, but we lived well. But then, my dad met another woman. I was 13 at the time. He left us. You can't imagine how scary it is when a person you love, whom you trust blindly, betrays you like that. He just pushed us away and left. It's terrifying. He never came home again. My mom couldn't bear it and started drinking. There was nothing I could do. When I was 17, her heart just gave out. Dad didn't even come to the funeral. A person. My own dad. He knew how scared and hurt I was, and he didn't come. The neighbors helped, and my mom's distant relative and her friend. And 3 days later, Dad had a car accident. I couldn't help but go to the funeral. I went. But a woman rushed at me at the cemetery. It was his wife. She cried and screamed that it was us, me and my mom, who were to blame for everything. If he hadn't been constantly worried about us, he wouldn't have drunk after my mom's funeral, where she didn't even let him in. He wouldn't have drunk and wouldn't have driven drunk. So, in just 1 week, I was left without parents. Oh, my God. Poor girl. Yes, now everything is fine. I went to study. Now I'm a nurse. It's good because I've decided that if Jeffrey goes somewhere again, I'll go with him, no matter whether it's a hot spot or not. I'll be useful everywhere, and he won't persuade me otherwise. Eva smiled. She immediately understood that such a conversation between the young spouses had already taken place. Otherwise, Marta wouldn't have had those intonations in her voice as if she were trying to convince Jeffrey of something. But she didn't have a chance to respond. The doorbell rang. Marta turned around in fear. Eva went to open the door. Kevin Coleman stood there, looking embarrassed. "Kevin. Come in." He entered the apartment. "Hello, Eva Griffin. I came on behalf of the whole class. How are you feeling?" He handed her a cake. Eva almost cried. Did it mean that the kids collected money to buy her a cake? "Kevin, come in. Let's have some tea." The boy looked frightened. It was one thing to be a messenger and deliver the cake, but a completely different thing to have tea at the teacher's home. "I don't even know." "You know everything. Come in. Marta is our guest." Marta appeared in the hallway. "Hello, young man. Please, come in." While Eva sliced the cake and made tea, Kevin and Marta were in the room. When she entered, they were standing in front of a photograph of Gordon and Eva. Marta turned around. "Is this Jeffrey's father?" "Yes. That's my husband." Kevin turned to her, looking confused. "At school, they said you didn't have a husband." He immediately slapped his hand over his mouth. Eva sadly smiled. "How do you see? I do have one. He disappeared on duty 25 years ago." Kevin whistled. "And still no news?" "None." The boy was impressed, and Eva quickly added, "Tea is ready. Everyone, please, come to the table." As Kevin walked to the table, his gaze fell on a more recent photo. There was Jeffrey in military uniform. He froze. He looked at the photo for a long time. Then he turned to the table. "Well, would you look at that? Is this your son?" "Yes." "Do you think we look very similar?" "Exactly the same." At first, I thought it was just a photoshopped picture, but the military uniform is different. Kevin bid farewell quickly, wished a speedy recovery, and rushed away. Marta smiled. "I guess it's nice to be so well liked by your students?" "Of course, it is. Honestly, I didn't expect it myself." Eva Griffin. "Can you tell me where to go to find work?" "Sure, Marta. I'll take you there tomorrow. I have to go to the clinic anyway to close my sick leave." Jeffrey hung up the phone. It was possible to call home once every 2 weeks. Not because it was very dangerous here, but the communication in these parts was reliable only through wired connections. To reach those wires, you needed to spend half a day. He still had a smile on his face when Christopher, with whom he became very close here, patted him on the shoulder. "I can see you're already thinking about home." "Yes, Christopher. I like serving in the army, but it's very lonely without my family. I got married the day before my deployment. You know how much I miss my wife." Christopher looked gloomy. Jeffrey asked, "What's wrong with you? Did I say something wrong?" "I don't even know. You see, I have my own views on family. I got married 3 months before my first trip here, and when I came back after a minor injury, I found my young wife with her lover." Jeffrey's face darkened immediately. "Are you hinting at something?" Christopher looked at him in surprise. "Are you out of your mind?" "I'm just telling a story. It's all in the past now. That's why I'm here, no one is waiting for me back home." Jeffrey sighed. "Sorry, brother."
Yeah.
"Whatever. Let's forget about it." For some time, they walked silently through the town, which looked more like a village in the desert. Then Jeffrey suddenly smiled. "You know what, Christopher? Let's go to my place after we finish our service." "Where to?" "Grand Forks." "Exactly. To Grand Forks. My wife, Marta, says she has so many beautiful unmarried medical worker friends. We'll definitely find the one for you. Do I need her? Jeffrey firmly said. Of course, you do. How old are you now? 30? 29 years. Well, 30 is just around the corner. Time will fly even faster after that. Before you know it, you'll be 40. And then you'll be retired with no family, no children, and no one waiting for you. Christopher smiled. You're quite the storyteller. Well, I can do that too. The friends laughed. Come on, think quickly, or we'll have to head back home soon. In the evening, their commander called them to his office. So, boys. He pulled out a map. Here's the deal. Our workers went to that village today. They were delivering water and checking what needs to be done. A large family lives there. I don't know how many people, but many. They were not very friendly at first. Although, when they heard that the road would pass by their village, they seemed to relax a bit. Anyway, our workers saw a man there. He is definitely an American. He understood perfectly well what our guys were saying, and he looks like an American. Although he has a beard almost down to his knees. We need to go there to check it out. You know that many of our guys disappeared here? People are still being found. Jeffrey said. We know. My father disappeared here. Christopher looked surprised. You never told me about it.
Yeah.
There was never a reason to. All right, my eagles. Go there tomorrow. Take a few guys, just in case. The next morning, they set off early. The drive was quite long. Heat, sand, they took 5 people with them and a couple of workers who would pretend to measure something. Jeffrey slept poorly that night. He didn't know why, but he felt very nervous after the evening conversation. They arrived. The oldest residents, assessing their numbers, offered them tea with a warm welcome. We won't refuse. While the men work, we'll gladly sit in the shade. Only now did the owner realize that the workers were unloading from the car. He immediately relaxed. Jeffrey smiled to himself. The cat feels whose meat it ate. They entered a spacious courtyard and sat on carpets under a large canopy. The owner merely snapped his fingers, and 2 very beautiful tanned girls appeared and started setting the table. Christopher couldn't take his eyes off one of the girls. The owner noticed it and frowned. Jeffrey immediately nudged Christopher, who seemed to wake up from his trance. They started chatting leisurely about the journey, nature, and livestock. When it seemed like all the topics were exhausted, the person they came to see finally appeared. The man looked around 50, give or take. He was clearly not a local. Jeffrey asked cautiously. A worker? Yes. The owner waved his hand. I bought him out about 20 years ago. They wanted to kill him. I felt sorry for him. And skilled workers are always in demand. We healed him up. He was in such bad shape. Then, when peace came, they wanted to release him. Are we animals? But we didn't know where to let him go. He doesn't remember anything at all. Nothing. So we spared him and kept him here. The man was dragging an enormous tub filled with waste to the barn. Jeffrey thought that he wouldn't be able to lift such a basin on the first try. Apparently, it was used heavily here. And now. Maybe it's worth showing him to the doctors? Perhaps he'll remember something? Who needs him now? So many years have passed. The owner didn't like this conversation, but Jeffrey decided not to back down. Can we talk to him? The owner was displeased. Fine, talk to him. Just keep in mind that I paid money for him. Christopher smirked. And he hasn't earned that money back yet? The owner remained silent, and Jeffrey approached the man. The man immediately looked at the owner, but the owner nodded. He didn't want to argue in such a situation. Hello? Hello? The man smiled. I so rarely hear my native language. He and Jeffrey sat down. Do you remember anything? Who you are? Where you come from? No, nothing. If I remembered, would I be sitting here like this? Why didn't you seek help? Well, by the time you get to some place, they'll take you back into slavery 7 times over. Your homeland may have won the war, but nothing has changed here. What about now? Can we help you? Is it worth it now? He's not the worst owner, and when I go home, what will I do? Where will I go? I don't even remember the city I lived in. And my wife or girlfriend is probably long married by now. And if there were any parents, they're most likely dead. So, there's no point for me in anything. Do you remember if you had a girlfriend? No. I don't remember. I managed to save a photo of her, or rather, a part of it. I wrap it in this envelope. When I was wounded, it damaged part of the photo, but the girl remained. Take a look. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. I wrap it up like this. Apparently, when I was wounded, part of the photo got ruined, but the girl is still there. Take a look. Jeffrey turned pale. The man handed him the photo. It was indeed challenging to see the girl on the photo as part of the man's head was missing. But Jeffrey couldn't fail to recognize her. It was the same girl whose large photo had always been on the table at his mother's house. What's wrong with you, pal? Jeffrey stood up. You're coming with us. The man looked scared, first at Jeffrey, then at the owner. The owner's 3 sons were standing nearby. Jeffrey raised his gun. Christopher stepped between him and the family. Calm down. Calm down. Listen, sir, if you trust me, and you can trust me, I promise I'll send you the money tomorrow for this man, or if you want something else, we'll work something out. Christopher came closer to the owner, and they started discussing something fervently. After 5 minutes, Christopher returned. We're leaving before he changes his mind. They quickly headed towards the car. They tried not to turn their backs on the family. As soon as the village disappeared in the distance, Christopher turned sharply to Jeffrey. What the hell was that? Do you realize how it could have ended? Aren't you a kid anymore? Why are you acting like a child? Why couldn't you report this to the authorities and handle everything officially? Jeffrey turned sharply to the saved and frightened man. Please give me the photo you showed me. The man meekly handed him the envelope. Jeffrey put the photo in his palm. Do you see this? Yes, I see it, and what? Well, that's the thing. This photo has always been on my mother's table. Christopher looked at the photo again, then at the man, and whistled. So, what? Did you just accidentally find your father or something? The man suddenly closed his eyes and sighed. Christopher. Come on, man, why would you say that? I didn't think. They stopped the car, but they couldn't bring Gordon back to his senses. So Jeffrey shouted to the driver. Drive straight to the hospital. After an hour, a doctor came out to them. Well, brothers. If you knew what this man has been through. There's hardly a place on him without scars. And you know what's strange? Not all wounds, or rather, scars have the same age. Treating him will be necessary, of course. But I want to talk about his memory. We used all the equipment we have to check his head. All the wounds on his head are superficial. They could have caused memory loss, of course, but that's only 1% out of 100. There's something else going on here. Most likely, at some point, he experienced such excruciating pain that his consciousness simply shut down. But not everything came back on afterwards. In such cases, hypnosis, alternative treatments, or a strong shock might help. You understand? All this needs to be rechecked. Only then can we talk about any treatment. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. Can I take him with me? Yes, of course. Well, what about the paperwork? Jeffrey sat in front of the phone for a long time. He couldn't figure out how to tell his mother about everything. Christopher was sitting beside him. Listen, Jeffrey. Maybe we shouldn't tell her at all? When you arrive, everything will become clear by itself. Who knows, Christopher? What's the best way? Right now, I don't understand anything. Did you talk to him? Yes. He doesn't remember anything at all. Although, he's starting to look more human now. He shaved his beard. Christopher. What? Have you decided something? I don't know. You have enough on your plate already. Don't make things up. It might even be easier for me. Honestly, right now, I don't know how to behave. I've always wanted to find my father, but when I found him, I became confused. My father has a living mother too. My grandmother. Christopher raised his eyebrows in surprise. You never mentioned her. What's there to talk about? My grandmother threw my mother out when she returned from the maternity ward. She said I wasn't Gordon's son. No way, really. By that time, my father had already disappeared. And my grandmother is still alive, it seems. I don't know anything about her, only that she was a general's wife. So that's where your military roots come from? Well, yes, I'm following in my grandfather's footsteps. They even named me after him. All right, that's enough. It's time to go. Brenda Griffin looked at Pauline dissatisfiedly. Well, how much longer? Just 40 minutes. I told you we arrived early. Oh, God. Couldn't you find a train where we could transfer right away? Pauline calmly smiled. If it were possible, I would have definitely found such a train. Barbara Phillips patted her granddaughter's hand, trying to calm her, but Pauline calmly said, Grandma, everything's okay. I knew what I was getting into. Pauline was Carter's daughter and Barbara Phillips' granddaughter. Brenda Griffin still insisted that Barbara ask her son for help. He, of course, didn't refuse. However, her granddaughter firmly refused to let them go alone. I'm going with you, and that's not up for discussion. As if I'd let you travel alone at your age. Pauline. You still need to study. Everything's fine. I'll need a break before exams. Now Pauline watched Brenda Griffin's mood swings and didn't quite understand why such a grumpy woman was going to apologize. But as they got closer to the place, Brenda Griffin became quieter. She almost stopped talking and swearing. She looked out the window and seemed to be lost in thought. Barbara Phillips even began to worry about her. Finally, she couldn't resist and asked. Brenda. What's wrong? You seem so sad. Maybe. It's nothing, Barbara. I just need to think. Remember everything. Everything's fine. Barbara thought to herself, you've brought this upon yourself. But then she came to her senses. Not everyone at her age would dare to fix mistakes made 20 years ago. For this, some of Brenda's sins can be forgiven. Pauline helped Brenda Griffin get off the platform and then Barbara Phillips as well. Well, ladies. Shall we take a taxi, or do we go by public transport? It's quite a distance from here. Brenda Griffin snorted. Public transport is for women who don't value themselves. Pauline smiled. In principle, your decision is right. It's almost evening now. I don't think the buses run for long here. Eva and Martha were setting the table. Both were nervous, but Eva was trembling nervously. Martha even had to give her a sedative. Eva Griffin. What's the matter with you? Jeffrey is coming home with a friend. It's all good. You're being too anxious. Yes, I understand, Martha. But, I don't know, I feel uneasy and all. It's my job to worry. What if Jeffrey stops loving me? Eva burst into laughter. Well, how could you say that? How could Jeffrey stop loving you? Look at what a beauty you are. Eva knew what she was talking about. Martha wasn't used to beauty salons and other female tricks. She was naturally beautiful. but Eva insisted that Martha change her hairstyle a bit and start wearing heels. At first, Martha didn't seem to like it, but now her mother-in-law admired her and compared her to the shy girl Jeffrey brought home. No trace of makeup, modest jeans, and a jacket. Of course, sneakers that all young people in the country wear. Now, essentially, it was the same Martha, but with slightly shorter and slightly lightened hair, a light, almost unnoticeable makeup, a skirt just above the knee, and high heels, now an integral part of Martha's wardrobe. A car honked near the house. "Oh, they're here." Martha suddenly stopped halfway to the door, and Eva laughed. "Well, Martha, go and meet your husband." Over the year that Martha lived with Eva, they became good friends. Eva was not at all disappointed in her daughter-in-law, quite the opposite. The girl reminded her a lot of herself in her youth. Martha strongly stood up for the truth and never passed by anyone who needed help. That's how they ended up with a young cat in their home, whom the girl rescued from the river in the reeds, risking her own life. Eva scolded her not for the cat but because she was very scared. No cat, no matter how beautiful, is worth risking your life for. What if you slipped? What if you fell? Did you think about that? Jeffrey came, but you didn't. Martha smiled and remained silent. Martha. Why are you smiling? You know, Eva Griffin. It feels so good when you scold me. No one has cared for me like that in a long time. Eva just shrugged her hands. No. Look at her. I'm trying to tell her that it's not right, but she doesn't care. In reality, both of them knew that this ordinary cat, hungry, dirty, and tattered, bonded them even more than the fact that they were now relatives. For 2 weeks, they took care of him together, treated him, fed him, and now the shaggy beauty wouldn't leave their hands. Martha went outside, followed by Eva. She immediately saw her son. She didn't see anyone else, only Jeffrey. Son. Jeffrey kissed his wife tightly, first giving her a surprised look, and then he grabbed both her and his mother and spun them around. I missed you so much. After a few seconds, he put them back on the ground. Mom. Martha. Meet my friend and colleague, this is Christopher. Martha, we're getting him married to the most beautiful girl in 2 weeks. Martha smiled. Of course, we'll get married. Eva Griffin hurried them all. Let's go inside. The table is already set. Everything's hot. Christopher and Jeffrey exchanged strange glances. Mom. There's something I need to tell you. We came with one more person. Eva felt her legs weaken. She didn't understand what was happening. Mom. Don't worry. I found my father. Martha and Christopher held Eva on either side, as she started to fall. The woman tried to compose herself. Mom. He doesn't remember anything. At all. Jeffrey opened the car door, and Gordon got out of it. He was still thin, but clean-shaven, dressed in a suit, and had a neat haircut. Gordon. Everyone heard a long, quiet cry. Gordon jerked as if he had been electrocuted. He looked at her. Looked. Then took a step forward. Eva. My Eva. She rushed to him, and Gordon shouted at the whole street. Eva. My Eva. Jeffrey looked amazed as his father embraced his mother with his arms, holding her close. Christopher said. There you have it, that life-saving stress. Do you think he remembered all of us? Definitely. Look at him. For about 10 minutes, if not more, Eva and Gordon stood hugging each other. No one disturbed them. What's 10 minutes? Compared to the time they haven't seen each other. Finally, Eva stepped away. Gordon. If you only knew how much I've been waiting for you. I never believed for a moment that you were dead. Eva. If not for Jeffrey. He hugged his son. Look at me. I have an adult son, a soldier, whom you, Eva, raised alone. Tears streamed down Gordon's cheeks. Why are you here? So far from New York? Eva didn't have time to answer. Hello? Can you tell me, please, does Eva Griffin live here? A taxi stopped next to them. A beautiful, tanned girl got out of it, holding a notebook in her hands. Yes. Eva looked at her with surprise. And who are you? And then Brenda Griffin got out of the car. It was clear that the woman had dozed off during the ride and now squinted from the sun, trying to see everyone on the street. Brenda Griffin? Eva didn't expect to see her after so many kilometers away from New York. Barbara Phillips came out of the car right after her. Eva silently looked at her mother-in-law. Eva. I came to see you. I couldn't live with it. I thought I could die peacefully, but I couldn't. Guilt and longing tormented me. I came to ask for forgiveness. I know there might not be any forgiveness for me. It seems that they don't forgive things like that. But forgive me. Forgive me, Eva. I acted so despicably. Very despicably. It only seemed like I didn't care. I should have come a long time ago. To throw myself at your feet, but I was ashamed. So ashamed that I wanted to die. And now I understand that a heavy sin is hanging over me. The old woman fell to her knees. Jeffrey and Eva rushed to her and helped her up. Barbara Phillips was crying. She had never seen her mistress like this before. Paulina was also amazed, blinking her long eyelashes. During the journey, she had already gotten used to the fact that the woman's character, and in general, her nature, was somewhat difficult. Mom. Brenda Griffin froze. Well, there's Gordon's voice coming from somewhere. Tears made it difficult to see Eva and her grandson clearly. Mom, hello. And then the woman saw him. Gordon. My son. An ambulance had to be called after all. Brenda Griffin felt so unwell that she lost consciousness, and Martha immediately said it was real. The doctor who came said that the woman was strong, she was just overwhelmed with emotions. They completely forgot about the table set at home. Eva and Gordon sat by Brenda Griffin's bedside, and she kept talking to them in a low voice, holding Eva's hand, then Gordon's. Barbara Phillips fell asleep quietly on the couch. Jeffrey, Christopher, Martha, and Paulina sat on a bench in the yard. Christopher sighed. You know what? I never thought I would become almost part of such a family story. Actually, I always thought that such things happen only on TV. Paulina smiled. That's true. Jeffrey hugged his wife and said, You know what, Christopher? I might take a time out. Serve here. I have a young wife, Mom. Now, a father and grandmother have appeared as well. Christopher quickly glanced at him. Will you forgive her? It's up to Mom to decide, of course. But she has already paid for her actions. Can you hold a grudge for so long? Maybe you're right. And we're going to have children with Martha, too, at once. Right, Martha? Instead of answering, the woman hugged him tighter. Christopher sighed. I envy you, brother, with a pure heart. I don't see such a scenario in my future. Paulina immediately asked him. Are you not married? Martha and Jeffrey exchanged glances, but then Eva and Gordon came out to the yard. Jeffrey was amazed at how much younger his mother looked, and his father's eyes were shining. Well, is everyone hiding? Did we cook all this food with Martha for nothing? Everyone to the table. Christopher immediately offered his arm to Paulina. May I escort you to the table? Paulina playfully curtsied and placed her hand on Christopher's arm. Later, when it was time for everyone to go to bed, Christopher whispered in Jeffrey's ear. Something tells me I won't be in a hurry to sign a new contract this time either. Brenda Griffin managed to convince everyone that they would be better off in New York. There's plenty of space for everyone. Gordon needs to be examined, young people need to live. There are more opportunities there. I'll be happy if you stay close. I'll be begging for forgiveness every day. Eva looked at Gordon and Jeffrey. Men have to decide in any case. 3 weeks later, the entire large company was leaving for New York. Eva's students, led by Kevin Coleman, came to see her off at the station. They even brought flowers, which made Eva burst into tears. Christopher was also going with them. I just proposed to Paulina yesterday, and she couldn't refuse me. Specifically, I asked her to marry me. Barbara, I can imagine how shocked Carter will be when he finds out. The train started moving. Everyone absent-mindedly looked out the window, lost in their thoughts. But no one in this company had any sad thoughts anymore. Gordon hugged Eva. I told you I would definitely come back.